What's good, guys? Welcome to my podcast, Snakz Thoughts. I'll say again, welcome to my podcast, Snakz Thoughts. There are mothers right now in America sleeping in the front seat of their cars while their children sleep in the back. Not traveling, not camping. That car is home. How did we get here? Tonight on Snakz Thoughts, we're not attacking anyone, we're not blaming, we're asking serious questions. Please, for tonight's topic, this may be kind of sensitive, but please just listen and hear me out, and then you can share your thoughts on it. Mothers sleeping in their cars with their kids. How did we get here? America's hidden crisis. Now, the reality, facts, not emotion. Some of it could be due to rising housing costs, inflation pressure, wage stagnation, child care costs, domestic violent escape situations, shelter capacity limits. Many of these women are not addicts, not criminals, not irresponsible. Some are working, you know, and many come from various different backgrounds. Obviously, it's no secret that the cost of rent prices have gone up significantly. The U.S. dollar, right now is experiencing serious inflation pressure to the point where any day now we could bust into hyperinflation. And the sad part about it, we have wage stagnation. Wages in the United States are not keeping up with the current rate of inflation. And anybody that has kids, and if they're trying to work, you know that child care is extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. And if you try to work and maybe put the kids like in daycare, that's extremely costly. And some of these women can't afford that. And then not to mention domestic violence escape situations where in fear of their safety and the safety of their children, they basically have to get on the run as fast as possible. And obviously, you know that there are many more shelters that are built, for women, but there's only so many shelters. So a lot of times there's only so many beds, in a given night. And so shelters, they do have capacity limits, and they can't build enough shelters for men and women both, but in this particular case for women, fast enough, as the rate of homelessness in America is, for females, it is rampant and it is rapid, and it's unfortunate, that some of these women, and many of them, that they work and they still have to live out of their vehicles with their children. Now, what do they fall into? What category of homeless? The invisible homeless. Living in vehicles is harder to count. Pride keeps many from asking for help. Safety concerns keep some away from shelters. This isn't always laziness. Sometimes it's collapse. And in empathy for these, single mothers that are going through this is not an easy thing. People living in their vehicles, or these women that are living in their vehicles with their children, society may not necessarily see them because we may not always see them, out on the streets. And obviously, a woman cannot be sleeping out on the streets, with children. That's child endangerment, and obviously, if the cops or either child welfare, or if people in society were to see women out on the streets like this with children, then obviously they would bring in social services. Somebody would make the call, and they would obviously call the police. And then once the police and social services get involved, then more than likely um, these mothers would risk having their children taken from them, as they cannot provide a safe environment, let alone for themselves, and then also for their children, you know. But, safety concerns. And so, one of the questions that I pose, okay, every child has two parents. And in the case, if it's not domestic violence, okay, say it's not domestic violence cases, and we know these women have to have other relatives, and I understand that maybe some of the relatives have their own, families and children, but generally speaking, if the mother or some other relatives that are still, alive, normally, um, other relatives would be willing to, at the bare minimum, take the kids in, even if they have to split the kids up amongst other family members in order to keep them from going into the system. And this is not this is a very tentative subject, but I am seeing with my own eyes more homeless women in America than I've ever seen. I've never seen this many women on the streets, and I even see some without children that are sleeping on the streets. They're finding, certain places, even benches, or maybe sleeping by certain businesses, or some of the homeless women may, have a boyfriend, or a friend, obviously, for protection, because for a guy it's dangerous, but for a female, that goes up exponentially in terms of safety. And then with kids, that's an exponential multiplier, you know. But this isn't always laziness. Sometimes it's collapse. Things happen. Now, the big question that I'm asking, okay, is housing policy broken? Is the economy outpacing wages? Has the community weakened? Are support systems failing? What role does family structure play? And these are some real life questions that have to be asked for a serious situation. You know, there was a time when you would never have seen mothers, this many like this, homes before. Somebody would take them in, and before they would let them go to a shelter, family members would take them and their children in order to prevent them from having to go to the streets. And this right here is a tough deal, because every last one of these women, these are somebody's daughters. These are somebody's sisters. These mothers are somebody's aunts. They're somebody's nieces. They're somebody's granddaughters, and they're also somebody's friends. And if they're working, they're also somebody's colleagues. So, what do you do? What is society's responsibility in this particular situation? And this is not an easy question to ask, as society in itself is made up of a bunch of people, and many that do not know these mothers on an individual basis, and many, these mothers are not um, related, what I'm saying, to many of the people in everyday society, you know, and it's gotten to a point where I guess the federal government, and even the state government as well, I guess systems have broken down, and I guess they're trying to turn things around and be more fiduciary or fiscally responsible or feasible. And it's unfortunate that women and children, and it's fortunate for men too, but women and children, you know, are having to suffer because of the breakdown in with the federal government and with inflation, and even just breakdowns in society. And many people in society themselves are trying, to survive so they can avoid winding up in this position, themselves. You know, Now the children. Um, when you have children that are homeless, you have school instability. Um, these children experience stress. They experience trauma. And then also you have to think about the long-term impacts on the children when they don't have a stable home, you know? And, it's sad, but the truth of the matter, children should not have to wonder where they're sleeping next week and where their next meal is coming from. And so, this lands accountability and responsibility on the parent, that has the children. And if there is, which obviously there is fathers, unless the fathers are, unalived, or if they are incarcerated, then they're out of the picture. But if the fathers, are alive, should the children be given, to the dad? Should they be given to the fathers until the mother is able to get on her feet? And then maybe if the father is stable, it would be better, for the father to raise his own kids, because if he's working and he's able to provide a stable home for his children, then would it not be fair, for him to have his own children? And for these the mothers, is it really fair or right to drag their kids into such a reckless and dangerous situation? Something to think about. You know, um, it would be better, to, if the fathers are, are alive, and obviously if they're stable, to let the fathers, have the children to avoid long-term damage to the kids, or versus them being taken by social services, and they wind up being put into the system. And then many times, if the father doesn't know, he has to go through, hell and high water to try to find where his children are, and to try to get them back is even a tougher struggle, you know. And there's accountability here, and obviously both parents should be involved in their children's lives, and it is, it's reality. Sometimes, marriages fail or long-term relationships fail, and we obviously know that there is a high single mother, out of wedlock rate, you know, in America, and we know this goes on in other parts of the world, but in particular in America, we have a high out of wedlock birth rate, you know. But when it comes to children, it takes on a whole different nature, and it's a totally different matter. when kids are involved. You know, um, what are some solutions? Because obviously something is going to have to be done. Um, some of the solutions: transitional housing programs, expanded child care support, community sponsorship programs, veteran mentorship networks, faith-based faith-based outreach, financial literacy education, policy reform discussions. And this is extremely important, but I would add in a caveat in that with community sponsorship programs, if the fathers are not incarcerated and they are not 6 feet under, the fathers need to be included in their children's lives. When it gets to this point when a mother has to, she's lost, a stable, the ability to provide a safe place, for her children, and also so that they can eat. Where's the other parent? You know, the other parent should be in the immediate, see the first line, to be contacted and to be brought in to their children's lives. Not unless the father is reckless, irresponsible, drugs or whatever like that. But if these fathers, are working and they are stable, then they need to be included in their children's lives. And if it gets to where the mother has to live out of a car, with her kids, the kids should be turned over to the fathers, and then she can work on, transitioning to make her situation better. And I know it's a tough thing to ask a mother to give up her kids, but they are not her kids only. Every last one of those children have a father. And it takes two, Um, she did not make those children by herself. And therefore, if the fathers are responsible, I think it's only fair that responsible dads should be given the opportunity to raise their own children in a dire circumstance like that. And even for women that are stable and they're working and they're raising their kids, if the fathers desire to be a part of their children's lives, I think that mothers should let the fathers be involved in their child's life. It really does make a difference. And you need both parents, even if they're in separate households. I mean, obviously, it's better if they're under the same roof, but in the event that things may not work out between both parents, at least if both are mutually invested in their child's life, the child or the children have a much greater have a much greater potential, a much greater potential outcome with both parents vested in their kids' lives. You know, and it's something to think about. I mentioned all these different things, but in society, I my personal opinion, I feel that um, they turn everywhere else, but the fathers are the last to be turned to. And I feel, in my personal opinion, that if mothers have gone into crisis mode and they cannot no longer can provide a safe place for their children and make sure they have clothing, shelter, food on the table, and a safe environment, and they have another viable parent, I think it would behoove the mothers. It's incumbent upon them to, um, even though it may hurt. What I'm saying, it would be better. What I'm saying, for the child's welfare, to let the fathers have the child, let them have their children, and let them raise them. Sometimes um, between men and women, relationships, or marriages go really bad or sour, and sometimes women can hold resentment, towards ex-husbands or ex-boyfriends or towards the father, and they sometimes, in when they allow their emotions to get the best of them, they don't always think clearly, and sometimes they would rather sink the whole ship rather than let the children go to the father and have a better outcome, while they themselves, work on themselves. And instead of thinking in the best interest of the kids, sometimes some mothers can be selfish, and they would rather than try to you know, get the passengers, onto life rafts to safety. Some would rather just punch holes in the ship like the Titanic and let it sink. And, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for these mothers, and that would definitely be unfortunate for the children, because the children, it's not their fault. Children cannot help the parents that they are born to. You know, that right there is not their fault, and the kids should not have to suffer, on behalf, of the parent. That right there, if social services happens to find out, or the police happens to catch it, that's, child neglect and child endangerment, and she can't have those children taken from her. You know, um, and I want to say this as I close, but I'm giving you guys and ladies something to think about. This is not about blame. It's about responsibility, and most importantly, shared responsibility. Um, it's about the best interest, of the children, ultimately. And also, the mother, you know, also her safety is important, but even much so, the children. It's not feasible for a mother that can't take care of herself to drag her kids with her when you have other. But first line of defense, when you have a stable father, first line before any other relative, when you have another viable parent, they should get first by right. They have first rights to their children, and they should get first rights to their kids, and have the same opportunity to raise them. And then um, the mothers can now worry about themselves and worry about getting themselves together. But that's all I have on this one. But it is something to think about. But this is a real crisis that is currently occurring in the United States, and it is spreading. It is spreading, and it is rampant. You guys, ladies and gentlemen, you would be surprised. You would be surprised. But that's all I have on this one. But this is something to think about, guys. This is something to think about. Ladies and gentlemen, please um, share your thoughts on this, and leave a comment. Leave it in the comment section. I would love to hear what you think, concerning this topic. This is a very serious subject, and it's really sad, to see something like that. It's very sad, but it's something to think about. But they have to do something. But um, from my heart, I would appeal to the mothers, if they are living in their cars, please get help. But if you have, if the father is stable and he's working, and if he is stable, please um, turn the kids over to the father. Give him a chance to raise his own kids. It's more important for the safety of the kids. I don't know these single mothers personally, but they are not your kids alone. If they have a stable father that's responsible, please um, give them to the father, and then you can work on getting yourself together. If the father is unavailable, then, you know what I'm saying, the next course of action would be to try to reach out, to relatives and obviously, these, other programs, so that you can transition and if you can get housing for you and, your children, obviously that would be good. But if the father is stable, reach out, what I'm saying, to the father and let the dad, what I'm saying, have the kids for the kids' well-being. But that's all I have on this one, guys. And the name of this podcast is Snakz Thoughts. That's SNAKZTHOUGHTS. And this podcast can be found on Spotify, Spreaker, Radio PBM, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and a host of other social media outlets. So please join and subscribe to Snakz Thoughts. You can either like or unlike the episode or the videos. I also have a YouTube channel, Eric Broadus YouTube, EricBroadus, YouTube or ericbroadusyoutube.com. So go over to my YouTube channel, smash the bell to become a subscriber, turn on all notifications, like or unlike the videos, live streams, shorts, whatever. Either way, leave a comment. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, has a right to be heard. And I'd love to dialogue with you and hear your thoughts. Also, please, guys, don't forget to hit the hype button, too. Hype video. And I am on Rumble, Snakz123, SNAKZ123 on Rumble. So subscribe to me on Rumble, join and follow me over there. Likewise, hit the like or unlike button, leave a comment. Love to dialogue with you over there as well. Want to hear your thoughts on this, and on any topic or any video. And last, I have the 5 best weight loss products, health and nutrition, guys. Link will be in the description, or you can find the description in any of my other videos on live streams on Snakz 123 on Rumble or in Eric Broadus YouTube, and in some of my other episodes on Snakz Thoughts. But yes, guys, share them, push them out. Snakz Thoughts podcast, Eric Broadus YouTube, Snakz 123 on Rumble, SNAKZ 123 on Rumble, and the 5 best weight loss products, guys. Share them out, push them, share them with friends, families, and whoever. You know what I'm saying? Please share them and push it out, guys. But I'd love to hear from you. So I will end on this note, guys, and I will catch you on the next one later.